Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Tone Church. What I thought we would do today is make a video about ordering parts and components to be used to build a guitar effects pedal. When I first started, I just bought all this junk from Amazon. Ding! And it worked for a time while I was learning, but you may have seen a couple of videos ago that I did where some of these cheap capacitors were leaking DC voltage onto the guitar signal, and we had really bad pedal pop when we engaged the bypass switches. So, we're not going to be using cheap Chinese junk off Amazon anymore. We'll be ordering high quality stuff from places like either Mouser or DigiKey, places like that. But for somebody that's just getting into this, you know, the Mouser and DigiKey websites and search function can be very daunting and confusing, as we will see. So I thought I'd make a video that will hopefully help some people out. So if that sounds like fun to you, hang tight, here we go. Okay, I originally filmed this video like a month ago, but one of the files got corrupted, so we're going to have to go back and film it again, and that's what we're doing right now. So I apologize if there's any inconsistencies or whatever in this script. But anyway, so today we're going to be doing some shopping for these 4 projects. We have 4 PCBs from pedalpcb.com. We have the Sproing Reverb, the Popper, which is a Prince of Tone clone, and the Mark I Overdrive, which is a Greer Lightspeed clone. And we also have this bad boy right here. They call it the Dual Overdrive, and this is a clone of the Brown Amplification Protein pedal. Oh my goodness. You can see there are no build instructions printed out because pedalpcb.com has not provided them yet. Anyway, so the main thing we're going to be shopping for, or the most difficult thing, is using the Mouser or DigiKey or Jamico or whatever, their search function. It can be very difficult to navigate that and find exactly what you need, and you know, hopefully this will help you from buying stuff that won't work, and will help you find the best stuff for your guitar pedal project. For building guitar pedals, the capacitance value will be in usually one of 3 ranges: the picofarad range, the nanofarad range, or the microfarad range. Now, you may find some projects that need millifarad range. That's usually for like solid state amplifiers. You might see capacitors in the millifarad range, or maybe power supplies, stuff like that, but I just added it here for reference. The base unit is measured in farads of capacitance, and 1 farad is an enormous amount of capacitance. I think the only application for like a 1 farad capacitor is like charging a railgun that would be on a battleship.
Fire!
So that's why we're down in these tiny amounts. So 1 millifarad is 10 to the minus 3 farads, or 1 divided by 1,000. And we have micro, 10 to the minus 6, nano, 10 to the minus 9, and pico, 10 to the minus 12 farads. So this is teeny tiny little bits of capacitance. All right, but again, we're going to be looking for pico, nano, and micro. So we'll start with pico. Now, there are 3 main ranges we're going to be searching for, and there are also 3 main styles of capacitor that we're going to be shopping for. Now, the smallest, or the picofarad, are generally ceramic capacitors. And that's these guys right here, the little yellow or brown discs. Those are ceramic. Then we go up to the next range, or the nanofarads, and these are film capacitors. As we can see here, that's like a little plastic box. All right, and then finally, once we get to the microfarad range, they're going to be electrolytic capacitors. And these are the ones that look like little barrels or little batteries almost. Okay, electrolytic capacitors are polarized. That means there's a right way and a wrong way to install them. So there's a positive and a negative lead. And then one little area that might trip you up is once we get around 1 microfarad, 2.2 microfarads, sometimes it'll be a film capacitor that'll be called for in your project, and other times it will be an electrolytic. So that's one thing we need to look out for. All right, let's move on. All right, here are the build instructions for the popper or the Prince of Tone. And I chose this one because it has a couple of those little gotchas that I was just speaking about. If we look here, we have 1 micro, C15 is a 1 microfarad capacitor, and C9 is also a 1 microfarad capacitor. So if we look at C9 up here, see how it's round? That's an electrolytic. If we look at C15, this is a box or film style capacitor. So when we make our shopping list, we need to make note of that. Now, the next thing we need to think about when we're plugging in on our search function on the website of the place we're buying our stuff from is we need lead spacing. Now, pretty much, which is nice for the most part, on the film capacitors and also on the ceramic capacitors, the lead spacing, that is how far apart the leads are 5 millimeters. And then on the electrolytics, they're either 2.5 or 2 millimeters. You can use either one. You know, if you have 2.5 millimeter lead spacing here, you can use a 2 millimeter because we're only cutting off 1/4 of a millimeter on each side. It'll go in. It'll work just fine. So again, ceramic and film capacitors, we need 5 millimeter lead spacing. On the electrolytics, for these projects anyway, we need 2 or 2.5 millimeter lead spacing. And then I think finally is the actual physical dimensions of the capacitor itself. Now with ceramic, it really doesn't matter. It'll fit anywhere. But as you can see right here, all these capacitors put together, these are 7.2 millimeters wide by 2.5 millimeters in this direction. Is that thick? So if we weren't paying attention, we got a film capacitor, say the C15, which is a good example. You'll see why in a minute. We get 7.2 millimeters wide, but it being a 1 microfarad capacitor, that's a kind of a high value, and it's more common to see these in 5 millimeters in thickness, sort of like this guy right here. And if we got the 7.2 by 5, he wouldn't fit in there with all the other capacitors. Now this C15 is weird. It's a 1 microfarad capacitor, and we need the 2.5 millimeter thickness. And for that larger value, this is really going to narrow down our choices as to what we can purchase. And if you're ever in doubt, get your PCB out. Get yourself some calipers. This was probably $5 at Harbor Freight, and you can actually measure. Get some light on the scene here, and say we want to measure the lead spacing. Right about there. You can see it's 5 millimeters. If we wanted to measure the thickness of this 1 microfarad capacitor, right about there, and 5 millimeters. All right, does that make sense? And this will probably all make a lot more sense once we hit the search function. And this will put it all together for you. It'll make more sense once we start shopping. So why don't we do that now? Let's go shopping.
Now there's Todd. Oh, he loses control of his cart. Folks, David's been hit. But like the man he is, he walks it off.
Okay, so the first thing we did was I have this spreadsheet that I made, and I usually buy the components for a bunch of projects all at once. That way I can save money on shipping, so I'm not paying shipping charges for each individual project. But what we have here, again, the main focus of this is going to be on capacitors, because these can be the trickiest. We have our values, we have our 4 projects, and these are the numbers of how many of these values are needed for the project. And then we have a total column. So obviously we'll be buying a total of 10 nanofarad capacitors, because we need 4 for the protein, 5 for the Prince of Tone, and 1 for the light speeds. We get 10. Alright, and this will help you make sure you get everything you need, because the worst thing is, going shopping, buying all the stuff you think you need, putting the project together, wanting to get it done, and play your guitar, and find out that, oh, I forgot to buy, 100 picofarad capacitor. So I find this spreadsheet to be very helpful. We also have the potentiometers we're going to be needing, any miscellaneous like trimmers or dip switches, you need a couple of those, and then our op amps, transistors, stuff like that. Alright, diodes, I basically have all the diodes we're going to need for these projects in stock, so we won't be shopping for those today. Need a toggle switch, and that's it. Alright, so we go over to Mouser, and I just chose Mouser arbitrarily. I've shopped from Mouser, I've shopped from DigiKey. They're both almost indistinguishable, other than the, label on the package, but they're both very good. So we need to go shopping, go to projects. We're looking for passive components, capacitors. All right, and the first thing we're going to need, we'll start at the top here. We need a 156 picofarad capacitor. So we're in capacitors. We want ceramic. And I find it's best to do the the different choices here to narrow it down. You don't want to do them all at once, because it'll eliminate things that are potentially what you want. So go in stock, apply filters, and we need 56 pico. 56 pico, apply. And we want radial, we'll apply that. And then we will sort from lowest to highest price. Alright, and here we are. One of the nice things about using, making an account and shopping here is it lets you know about previous purchases, and if it worked good last time, it'll probably make it easy to, buy what you want. But let's go crazy. Let's buy something nice. Okay, so manufacturers. Basically, if you're buying from Mouser or DigiKey or wherever, most of the stuff they sell is high quality. And we'll talk about this some more when there's more choices. But Vishay is very good. TDK is very good. Kemet is good. Nothing wrong with Kemets. Basically, any capacitor made in Japan, you probably, will have good luck with. But Vishay is very good. These are 27 cents each. Lowest price one is 25 for the TDKs. This guy worked good before, but let's try something new. Let's try this Vishay. So now, we need to make sure we get the right lead spacing, and they don't have a column for that here. So, let's right-click on this guy, open a new tab. Let's look at his data sheet. Where is his data sheet? There we go. Gotta right-click the right thing. Okay, lead spacing, 2.5 millimeters. That's too skinny. That is not the droids we're looking for. Let's go to this next guy. Lead spacing, right here, 5 millimeters. So that's perfect. Voltage rating on a pedal. Generally, they're plugged into a 9-volt power supply. You want to have at least double, so that would be 18 minimum. Some pedals, though, have a voltage doubling op amp in them. The Klon has one. The King of Tone has one. So that bumps it up to 18 volts. You want to have at least 36 volts. So 50 is perfect. So this looks like a good capacitor that fits our needs. So that was this guy here. I usually don't buy less than 5 or 10 because, I feel bad making these guys package up one 27-cent capacitor. So we'll buy 5. And we'll continue shopping. Go back to our shopping list. Change this guy to green to let us know that we bought one. And then we'll move on. Alright, I'm going to move on to film caps. I'll show you something a little bit different. So let's go back here. And get rid of that. Get rid of that. We'll add film capacitors, apply that. And so we have film and radial. We want 10 nanofarads, which is 0.01 microfarads. We'll apply that. And lead spacing, we'll add that. The ceramic capacitor didn't have a choice of that, but these do, so we'll apply that. And we're already sorting the lowest to highest. And right here, Wema, Vishay, Panasonic, Nichicon, Kemet, the cornhole doublers, these are all very good. Choosing a capacitor from any one of these manufacturers, you'll have good results. Okay, and then the width, we want 2.5 millimeters, so it'll fit on our board properly. And here we are. Chemits are a decent choice. They're not the best, but they're certainly not the worst. I've used a lot of Chemits. They're cost effective and they work just fine. But if we wanted to bump it up a little bit, we have these Wemas here. So these are 36 cents each. And, you're paying, what, 14 cents more per capacitor? Another thing to look out on these websites is the minimum quantity. Some things, you might have to buy in bulk. So you want to make sure you're looking at stuff, unless you're planning on buying 10,000 capacitors, just keep an eye on that. But anyway, let's take a look at these Wemas. Radial, 0.01, which is what we want. 400 volt DC voltage rating, which is, well over what we need. But we have a 20% tolerance here. And we have some of these other choices here that are 5 and 10% tolerance. So that I might choose, with given all these choices in our cost range, I will try and get the best tolerance, as well as another thing to look out for is the maximum operating temperature. Some things are 85 degrees centigrade, some are 100, 105, 125 for this guy right here. So that's why this Wema is nice, but it's certainly overkill. 85 degrees C is fine, but I like to get it a little bit higher if possible. So let's go back to the tolerance. A tighter tolerance to me means, better manufacturing. Whether or not that's true, who knows. 5%. 5%. All right, so let's take a look at this Kemet. He's 25 cents, 0.01, 100 volt DC, which works. Maximum AC rating 63, that's fine. Tolerance is 5%, 5 millimeter lead spacing. Maximum operating temperature is 105 degrees C. 7.2 by 2.5 in dimension. The height we're not too concerned about. So this is a good capacitor. So why don't we go ahead and we need 10 of these guys. Let's go ahead and buy 10 of these guys. Where'd he go? Right here. 10. Buy them. Continue shopping. All right, and finally, let us buy some electrolytic capacitors. Let's go ahead and, let's make this guy green first. We need 3 10 microfarad electrolytic capacitors. So go back up here, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that. Let's get rid of everything. Okay, we'll select electrolytic capacitors, apply that. And we need radial, apply that. And capacitance, 10 micro, apply that. And we're sorting low to high. I've been buying these Worth capacitors. They seem to be very good. And they're red, which is cool. Well, let's see what other choices we have. Okay, one thing on the electrolytics is sometimes they're grouped together on the printed circuit board. You'll have a whole bunch right next to each other. And you have to make sure that the diameter is not too wide if you know they're all spaced tightly together on the board. Okay, so not giving us a lot of information here. So we might have to check the data sheets on these. Alright, these are 10 cents, 10 cents, 10 cents. Got the cornholes. Never heard of Lelon before. More Worths. We have a previous purchase here. So let's take a look at them. Okay, radial leads, 10 microfarad, 50 volt DC, which is more than enough. 105 degrees C rated, which is nice. 5 millimeter, so they're not too wide. 2 millimeter lead spacing. These are very good. So we'll go ahead and we'll, how many do we need? We need 3. But at 10 cents each, or 14 cents each, we'll buy a few extras, so let's buy 5. Buy. Alright. Make him green. And then we'll continue shopping. Hopefully that was helpful, using the search function on these websites, choosing the parameters for the capacitors you'll need for your project. Let's move on. Alright, I'm going to show you a couple of websites that I like to use. And this is where you can get your off-board components, like your potentiometers, your enclosures, your 9-volt jacks, your guitar cable jacks, stuff like that. Now, the first one here is Amplified Parts, and this is also known as Antique Electronics or Tubes and More or CE Distribution. They're all the same company. Now, this website is geared generally more for amplifier builds, but they do have a lot of stuff for pedal builds as well. Like, you know, they're advertising these nice limited run Hammond enclosures right here. When you're buying an enclosure, the PCB bill of material should say what size enclosure you need or what size enclosure it was intended to be used in. If you're new at this, you're just starting out, you may want to get one size bigger because it can be tough to fit 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound enclosure, especially if you want to stick a battery in there. So just watch out on that. Make sure you get the right size enclosure. So Amplified Parts, and I think Tube Depot as well. If you buy a certain amount of stuff, I think it's like $89, $90 on each one, they will throw in free shipping, which is nice. And when I'm buying a lot of stuff, I like to see if I can get everything I need from one website to either A, get the free shipping if they offer it, or B, only have to pay one shipping and handling fee from one place instead of having to pay shipping and handling from 2 or more places. So that's Amplified Parts. Go check out that website. Been using them for years. They're great. Tube Depot, very similar. They obviously they're more geared towards tubes, but they have stuff here that you can use to build amplifiers and effects pedals, like potentiometers. There you go. And as you can see, they don't have the right angle PCB mount. So again, Tube Depot is geared more towards amplifier builds. Amp Parts Direct, I think, or maybe I haven't. I don't think I've shopped with them before, but it looks like they have a lot of interesting stuff. So it might be worth checking them out. Mojitone is obviously very famous. another website for amplifier builds, but they have like cabinets. If you need a cabinet, you're building an amplifier, you need a cabinet. You don't have a wood shop in your basement. You know, this is the place to go. Grill cloth, stuff like that. It won't be cheap, but they do have it, and from what I understand, they're very nice. I mean, as we can see right here, it's finger jointed, etc. All right, looks like they're having supply chain issues, like a lot of places are. And Hoffman amplifiers, if you need a turret board built, you can send him what you need and he'll build it for you. And he's also got a lot of stuff for building amplifiers as well. I've placed several orders with them. He's fantastic. He gets it right out. Really like Hoffman amplifiers. Now, more geared towards guitar pedal builds. One of my favorite places to shop is Small Bear Electronics. They're basically right up the street from me, so I get it real quick. And they have everything you need to build pedals. A lot of stuff they have that other people don't have are like bucket brigade chips, BBDs. Let's see what they got, if anything. If anyone's going to have it, they will. See, an MN3007. And it ain't going to be cheap, but you can be guaranteed it's going to work if you buy it from them. And there you go. They have 267 in stock. Very nice. So Small Bear, we like them. The only problem with Small Bear recently is they seem to be having supply chain issues with their enclosures. Out of stock, out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. So they don't have a huge selection of enclosures right now. Hopefully they'll sort that out. You know, I really want a couple of these polished ones and then the 125B size, but it just ain't got it. Stomp Box parts. As you may have seen in the last video, they do not offer alpha potentiometers, which I recommend you get. They have their own brand, Stomp brand pots. They're half as expensive as alpha. And yeah, is what it is. They do have a ton of enclosures that are really cool. They got pink B stocks, which I love getting. If you can get a deal on B stocks, why wouldn't you? You know, and I've gotten a bunch of B stocks from them, and the flaws or scratches are extremely minor. So that's a good deal right there. So Stomp Box part, they've got everything you need to build pedals, and they seem to have more enclosures than stock than a lot of other places. Guitar pedal parts, I think I've placed a couple orders with them. They seem to be very good as well. Let's see what they have for enclosures right now. We have 125Bs. Aluminum enclosure. Oh, Gorva. Nice. Gorva makes good stuff. So, another good spot. And finally, I haven't shopped with them, but I believe Gray Bench Electronics uses them a lot, and he raves about them, so they may be worth a shot. I think I haven't shopped with them because the stuff they offer is usually a little bit more expensive, but you're pretty much guaranteed to get, top quality stuff from them. All right, just want to talk about a couple more things before we wrap this up. The first is potentiometers here, and I recommend that you either buy Alpha or Gorva for effects pedals. And here we are on amplified parts, and the ones that I use are these that you see right here, the 16 millimeter. And there's a couple of styles. There's the narrow bushing, and then there's the wider bushing. There's no problem using either one. Just be aware that that's what you're using. A nice thing about the Gorvas is they come pre-installed with a dust cover on them. If you get the Alphas, you're going to want to go and get some of these dust covers. And it's more than for just keeping dust out of the pot. It's more for these things hang over the back of the PCB, over all the soldered connections of your passive components. And if the back of this pot, which is metal, brushes up against, the solder connections, it's going to create a short circuit. So that insulates the potentiometer from your circuit board. So those are the pots. And then finally, the actual PCB. I by far have used pedalpcb.com the most for my builds, and they're fantastic. I've never had a problem with them. Usually get my stuff within about a week after ordering it, but they're really nice thick boards. They're just very good. I've also done some ion effects projects. They're also just as good as pedal PCB. What I like about these guys, though, and I think pedal PCB needs to step up their game, is their build documentation is much more thorough. I mean, not only do they give you like the background of the project and the circuit and things like that, but you know, you get all this stuff that discusses it. And the bill of materials is very specific and detailed. And then a lot of them, you have troubleshooting instructions and, you know, things like that. You know, so their build documents are second to none. So, you know, pedal PCB, you need to step up your game. But either way you go, you'll be fine. This is, you don't need all this extra stuff to make a pedal, but it's nice to have. I've also purchased from Mad Bean Pedals. They've got really nice boards as well. And then there is Tonepad. And you can buy these kits on Small Bear Electronics. They have the Tonepad kits. You buy the board and then you buy the component kit separately. And the very first project that I did was a Tonepad tube screamer. Now these are good. The only thing that I would bring up is these are single-sided and the traces are kind of like printed on the board. And if you're not very good at soldering, it can be easy to, like, you know, rip the pads off and rip the traces off the board if you're not careful. But that shouldn't deter you. You know, if you just take your time, you know, you shouldn't have any problems using these kits. And they're cost effective and they're nice. I mean, I still have my tube screamer and it still works great. And there are many other places out there, but these are the, you know, the places that I have experience with. And they're all really good. All right, moving on. All right, and finally, if you don't want to go through that whole rigmarole with the Mouser search engine and picking out all your own components, and it's your first time building a guitar pedal, there are plenty of kits available that come with all the stuff you're going to need. So over here, Small Bear has a wide selection, amplified parts or antique electronics. They have a bunch of kits. These look pretty nice. Stompbox Parts, they have kits. Guitar Pedal Parts has kits. Mojo Tone has kits. And even Tube Depot has pedal kits. Now, the only kit I've ever built, like I said, was the Tonepad kit that I got from Small Bear. And it was fine. But for these other ones, I really can't vouch for how good quality the components are, or how well it goes together, or how it sounds, or anything like that. You'll have to do some more research to find out all that, but, you know, that's what they invented the internet for.
Where'd you hear that?
The internet.
And you believed it?
Yeah, they can't put anything on the internet that isn't true.
And there you go. That's how you shop for guitar pedal parts to make your own stuff. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you real soon.
Done.